Hello and greetings, everyone. Today is Science is the New Religion script with Michael in Germany, and it looks like we are on the topic of Israel. Hello, Michael.
Hi,
Welcome.
Brett. This is just a short script of 33 pages. Oh, by coincidence, 33, really. Has much to do with the stuff that we recently have talked about. Science is the New Religion, about geology, about all this Matthew 24 coming into effect, and deception everywhere. So let's go back to Israel, because we have talked about South America, Latin America. Let's go to Israel. Israel is a country in the Middle East founded in 1948, quite after the Second World War, in the end phase of the World War I and World War II ritual. It's a member of the United Nations, sure. Many websites claims, Israel, the name comes from Isis and Ra and El and all the stuff. Oh, I have to reject all these theories, because I guess that we will stick to Esau. And Esau obviously says Jacob wrestles with God. That's Genesis 32:28 for you. Okay.
Yep. And he said, "Thy name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel. For as a prince hast thou power with God and with men, and has prevailed."
Yeah, so the Hebrew root of Israel is Yisrael and not Isis, Ra, and what else. Yeah, so that is the Hebrew root, means Israel, then starts with a Y. Israel means he will rule as God. Israel is symbolical name of Jacob, also typically of his posterity. And Jacob usually means a betrayer. Am I right, Brett? From memory. Every name has a meaning, you see?
All right. Heel catcher.
Uh-huh. What's the heel catcher then?
I don't know. That is supplanter.
Yeah, I can remember myself that Jacob means a betrayer, somebody who's just betraying people.
Okay, and then it says definitions of supplanter: one who wrongfully or illegally seizes and holds the place of another.
Illegally, see?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So Jacob has not that much of a good connotation then.
Yes, correct.
Mm-hmm. So with all this interesting evolution theory that Israel has started 14,000 years before, I'm sorry, you see that all these pagan websites will tell you that Moses is a descendant of pharaohs, because people usually, of course, they don't take the Bible as their reference. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My question, if you think that Moses comes down from Egypt, from the descendant of pharaohs or ruling class or what else, my question is, where is Egypt? So question, where is Egypt mentioned here in the metal man image of Daniel? Nowhere to be found.
Right.
So many people, including Freemasons and OTO and all these people, they will claim that, Egypt is the cradle of mankind because the pyramids are the only one of the 7 world wonders which had endured the great flood and all the stuff, so that it would be then the cradle of mankind, the origin of all the stuff. And sure, you believe so. That's a distraction to distract you from Babylon. You see that on that metal man image. So Israel, that poor country, which is a physical Israel, it's not much to do with the Israel meant for the people of God. You can interfere anytime, Brett. If you got another explanation or you got another opinion, feel free to interrupt anytime.
Of course.
I don't think that is Israel. So I think I stick to the Hebrew words and not to the Arabic writings of letters here, which is in the modern nation state of Israel. And also the six-pointed star is not the actual symbol for the people of Israel.
Of course not.
Yeah. Of course not. Yeah, you know that's of course, but you see the majority of people, 99 would say, of course it is. Because they are used to see that symbol. That symbol who was as a symbol of shame on the arms of these Jews in the Third Reich, for example.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so,
Right.
sure, you see that they can tell you anything. They can tell you that it's only a hexagram and it's just... it's not the Star of David, right?
No.
And they can tell you that you find on the surface of Saturn that you will find a hexagonal symbol there, which is just identical to the Star of David and all the like. I'm sorry, I don't have a telescope. I can't prove it. What I find a little bit odd is that they come up with this hypothesis about the Saturn, the hexagonal shape. I'm sorry, I'm not no native English speaker. Quite recently, yeah, and not 200 years ago. You see that they discovered the Uranus in 1780 somewhere, but nobody discovered then the hexagonal. They needed, of course, a NASA space shuttle or NASA space, what else, satellite to discover that, sure. My. So not speaking about all the distractions here, it's just outrageous. It is just outrageous. Mount Hermon has been mentioned several times, but of course, it's a mountain range, and a mountain usually depicts a place where you are just being closer to God. It's the same thing that the ark landed in the mountains of Ararat, and it's the same thing at the Mount Zion, and it's the same thing all over the place. So mountains have been used in any kind of religion to be closer to God. If God just descends from heaven, in what kind of a shape or form, the closest things to heaven then is a mountain, of course. And Mount Hermon, many people will claim, that Mount Hermon is where the mythical Lucifer and his fallen angels landed according to the Bible. First of all, Lucifer is the old name or the old profession actually, and Lucifer is a title which would also be reserved to Jesus Christ as the morning star, if you would like to go into the book of Revelation. Are you with me, Brett?
Yes.
Okay, so, and the fallen angels landed according to the Bible, which is also untrue, because where it has been stated on Mount Hermon, that there were fallen angels, the mentioning of Mount Hermon as a border of the Promised Land is mentioned in the several chapters of the Bible, actually. Yes, but not in the context of a landing spot of fallen angels. The only thing where you find this is the apocryphal book of Enoch. And that's the problem that I face everywhere. When people are just sending me or recommending me videos, every time I find this apocrypha mixed in, I find mythology mixed in, I find teachings of men mixed in with the Bible. You won't find the landing place on the fallen angels in the Bible. Because I guess that does not matter, because then it would be a place of worship for the dark spirits and dark forces. Right? So therefore, the number of angels or fallen angels in that regard must be enormous. Anyway, so that means they are all over the place. And as there are spiritual beings, it does not make any sense to worship them as physical beings, although many people I came across lately are also just doing that and claiming that fallen angels can be shapeshifters and all the stuff. You see that? Problem is people don't stick with the Bible.
That's it. It's everything but the Bible, Michael.
Yes, correct.
And so how can you talk about the Bible when you haven't even searched the scripture to begin with? That's what really trips me up about these web pages like this one, Michael, that these images are from and this research is from. It's like, how can you even reference the Bible when you don't study from the perspective of the Bible. See, it's all about faith in the end. It's all about what we believe in the end. It's not, not anything personal, really.
No, in the
it's
end,
beyond that, actually. It's beyond the personal because, as a person, as a believer in Christ, I surrender my persona. I no longer have a persona and I no longer care. That's the attitude. Just to give you an example, right, Michael?
yeah, spot on. Problem is that when the majority is on the broad way leading to destruction, you see that the mainstream will of course carry all these messages which are incorrect, according to the Bible, incorrect. But you see, to understand this is you don't need a PhD. It's just common sense that the majority must be on the broad way. Therefore, the way is broad. So, and when they say that Israel, the priests were taken from Israel to Babylon, yeah, that's correct. They copy Sumerian mythology about Adamu and Anunnaki creating a flood and write the Old Testament is also not correct. It's their assumption, of course, but most likely the Bible has been written by Moses, and that means that Moses received the tablets, and way before Moses, it was then been forwarded to many generations, starting with Adam. But of course, if you are just here in a pagan website, they will claim everything, because in the end, it's like Brad just described, it's just what you believe. You don't have to believe us. You believe maybe in some gods, or that nobody is God, that you yourself are God. I don't know. It's not my concern.
Michael, I gotta just quick say this, because this is exactly where things are headed. It's, when we're confronted with problems, and we will talk with one another, like maybe old friends, maybe work companions, maybe someone at the cash register. Doesn't matter who it is. You're just talking and you're just telling them your viewpoints. Well, when you challenge someone's faith, okay, when you are explaining this, however you want to call it, a rough draft of what you believe, because it would take a long time for you to extract, or at least this is what I think about it, is it takes a great deal of time and energy to extract all of those beliefs that you have and construct them into something that actually is in a word form that you can actually tell someone. When you do that and you are defining your faith before someone else and they don't accept it, it's not anything personal. It has everything to do with, I would say, religion. Right, Michael?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's your belief. It's your faith.
You see, you will see if the Bible speaks the truth or not, because the Bibles will just reveal all the events in these days. Yeah, so the Bible is a book not only full of history, but also full of prophecy. And that's what we are going into very soon.
Mm-hmm.
The city of Jerusalem, websites claim, Hieros Sol Omon, secret marriage of sun and moon. That is just, of course, their belief, because you can have, for one and the same item, you can have a numerous amount of explanations. And, of course, only one is true. So, in the end, it's like Brad said, it's what you believe. Yeah? Either you believe in their belief, in their pagan belief, but I don't believe that Jerusalem is the city of Solomon, sun and moon, a secret marriage of sun and moon. I believe that Jerusalem means the capital of Palestine, and it is Hierosalame, Yeah, so not Solomon. You see what the problem is? You have to go to the original language then, Jerusalem, yeah, Jerusalem, of Hebrew origin, and not how it's been named or called or pronounced today, because there are some letters that I know of that didn't exist 2000 years ago. So then just have a shortcut here. In 1970, the state Israel is promised in the Balfour Declaration by Cecil puppet Arthur Balfour to Walter Rothschild. Yeah, then you are with Arthur Balfour, a British agent of the Cecils, sure, and not only of the Cecils. Company of Rothschild is in it with the creation of the Balfour Declaration and also then later of the creation of the nation state of Israel. How wonders. How wonders. Rothschilds are the bankers of the Vatican treasury. So then we got the Third Reich with the suppression of the Jews and all the stuff. And then we got the Israel's Declaration of Independence on the 14th of May, which is, by the way, just by coincidence, it's the feast day of the Holy Corona, the Roman patroness of diseases. Yeah, she was quite unsuccessful in 2020, according to mainstream media. And not only this, it's just about this Israel Declaration of Independence comes from David Ben-Gurion. It's very interesting, that guy. The first president is Chaim Weizmann, the first president, and you see that these people usually have cold right hands. And that's Albert, which has a happy day here, because Albert also officially, at least, is a Jew. And I regret that I got into this topic, because you can spend 10,000 hours on the subject of who's Jew and who's not Jew and what is meant by this and by that. I just wanted to have a brief overview before we just go into the things which really matter. Of course, this is a Freemason gesture, and you see that they're all intertwined. It's just no wonder. And Albert Einstein is among them. Mr. Einstein, of course, where people get their PhD in astrophysics. They tell that the people, they believe, in their science belief, they believe that the object, the bigger it is, the more it will curb the space around it. So space-time bending, yeah. So as I said, the deification of space. Yeah, so space is then just an object in itself, which is totally... It's just their creation and it's just their definition. You see that vacuum means nothing and emptiness, but vacuum is not empty, they tell you. So there are no absolutes. You see that everybody is just...
Oh, yeah, Michael. Did you say deification?
I'm sorry, reification, but deification is also interesting.
That's something different. Yeah, exactly. Reification. Yeah. I was thinking about that. To reify, to make something abstract or more concrete or real. But reification is, I'm just looking up the meaning quick. The act of treating something abstract, such as an idea, relation, system, quality, etc., as if it were a concrete object. So I find that so interesting in terms of looking at space, because of this topic of the late 19th century. I think it was... what was that called again now? That term for the... I think it was called the ether, Michael. Mm-hmm. The ether. And that term was eradicated through the same people that I believe it could be. I mean, I haven't done enough research onto this, by the way. Maybe you have, Michael. I don't know. That's why I'm asking. Is that something to do, the term ether, that has something to do with the way that the science, before it was corrupted with Einstein's theory of relativity, was stating what space is? It's not space, it's ether.
Yeah, actually, ether actually comes from the Isaac Newton universe. Yeah, so that was their explanation of how things achieve or can be achieved then. So that was Einstein's revolution, so to speak, that there is no ether necessary because that would totally contradict his theories. Yeah, and that's a problem in itself. So
That's a problem in itself. So,
what
what was
just
it,
let me
Michael?
just say this. You see, the revolution of Einstein was actually to revolutionize the entire science. It was not just only the special relativity and his official findings. It was just to get rid of the old absolutes, because in the Middle Ages Isaac Newton for a certain amount of time was the absolute truth. Yeah, and then came Einstein, and that's why I told you lately that I guess that when artificial intelligence takes over totally, then Einstein will be toast. Yeah, because then they will have a new absolute truth by the machine, which is super smart, which is also the topic of an upcoming session then. And therefore, you see, you got an absolute truth which has been then taught in all the school and universities, and so therefore they have gotten rid of the ether.
In reification, there was something that I had found, and I'm looking for at the moment, about that in the book of Hebrews. And it really hit me the other day, and I should have made a note of it, and I did not. So I apologize. I'm just looking, and I'm not coming up with anything at the moment. So.
Okay. I thought I would go into the King James Bible.
Hold on a second. I'm just trying to remember, because it was something. Yeah, it was Hebrews 11.
11, yeah.
Yeah, Hebrews 11, Michael.
Very strange, because today I came across Hebrews 11.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that was something that our friend Daryl Eberhardt was touching on, I think maybe last Sabbath or a couple Sabbaths ago, was Hebrews 11. And right here, in the very beginning, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. For by it the elders obtained a good report. Now, bam! Through faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, so that the things which are seen were not made of things which do appear.
Yeah, it's a good and valid point.
That is biblical reification, okay? Of space, of the quote-unquote universe.
Mm-hmm.
That really hit me the other day. I was like, wow.
Mm-hmm. The quintessence or the fifth element. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We did talk about
interesting.
Way back in that.
Yeah, way back. Yeah.
Series.
Imagine on the one hand they tell you it's a vacuum, the space is a vacuum. On the other hand, they claim you, oh no, vacuum does not mean that it's not there. That's nothing there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, they had to get rid of the ether.
Yeah. Yes, they did. Right.
It's really a science comedy, if you think about it.
Yeah, right.
It's really a science comedy. You see that the words does not have the explanation that they used to have. The etymology will be totally tossed around, and then you claim there is nothing, although there is something, but there is something, and that what was usually what would be there is not existing anymore. So I have to replace the ether then with their time, space, bending, and gravity.
Right.
Yeah. Wonder what they come up next with, but that must be being interpreted by a machine due to the complexity of matters, blinding you with science. And then comes also that we do not know what kind of dialect these aliens, these extraterrestrials might have. Maybe we don't know their language, so maybe we need AI as an interpreter or a translator. And you think that's far-fetched. Just wait and see what will come. I do not know what to come, but it just pops into my mind. You see that maybe it's so complex when you think about a higher being, which is so intelligent. They don't use English because English is just simply too simple.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So you see, they won't speak German either because maybe
Right.
it's too outlandish for them. Yeah. So they have a digital language 1000111111. Yeah. And nobody understands anything but a computer because he's just programmed with 1 and 0. It's interesting because 1 and 0 you can also divide into symbolism, but I don't think that we will touch this. Maybe that would be interesting for a future thing. I think that maybe many people would be surprised, and maybe we can have some inspiration for listeners that they can come up with their own research, and then they really see that, oh yeah, I haven't never thought about this because it's just really interesting where all this stuff came from. Okay, I would just make a note here, but let's just move on maybe. Otherwise it won't get 3 hours on this. So they say that, okay, of course, Einstein has taken over and he's now since 100 years, he's the absolute truth, which is not, but it's just mainstream science. Yeah, so of course, many people, they only owe their social status and income and wealth and all the stuff only of all just repeating all the same stuff. And I don't want to go and don't want to discredit anybody, but actually she is a science believer because that's what just she sacrificed her life into believing mainstream science, right? Yeah, and of course you can do any test, any theory if you are just in your closed system with doing the test and doing just the verification among your brethren in the brotherhood or in the science community, then everything looks fine on the outside. Yeah, but wait until someone outside this brotherhood would show up. They won't listen to him, or they would maybe kill him because he's a science heretic.
Yeah, that's right. Burn him at the stake.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have their own inquisition, don't they?
Sure. Yeah, the first level of inquisition would be we don't speak with you anymore because we only speak to our experts.
Oh, that would be excommunication, Michael. Right?
Yes. Excommunication means the end of communication. That's absolutely spot on. Right. Yes. Also that happened in 2019, 2020. You could only listen to so-called experts.
Absolutely. Good point. And what's up with the mandate, huh? I mean, where did that come from? I mean, this is nothing new under the sun, is there?
Let's put it this way, to just get rid of all the discussions about the nation state of Israel, because it's actually not my point. Copilot, your daily artificial intelligence servant, sure, I don't need you. I can think of my own. Maybe
Why don't they just call it co-opted? We take your research and flush it down the toilet.
What I would like to do, I would like to recommend to some books. That I have read in the past years. One of the books are Shlomo Sand, The Invention of the Jewish People. He may write about this because he is Jewish and he's a Jewish history professor. There are many books that I got on that subject. Not only Shlomo Sand, but also other books. So Shlomo Sand, for example, is an Israeli emeritus professor of history at Tel Aviv University. So you see, he's just writing interesting books. The book that I just recommended is The Invention of the Jewish People. It's the myth of the founding of the nation-state of Israel.
Yes.
And then you see that the nation-state of Israel has nothing to do with the real Jews. The purpose of the nation-state of Israel is quite another thing. And we come to this, I hope, in this session. The next one I can recommend to you is Ilan Pappé. Ilan Pappé is an Israeli historian, political scientist, and former politician. He is a professor with the College of Social Sciences and International Studies at the University of Exeter in the United Kingdom, director of the Cities European Center for Palestine Studies and co-director of the Exeter Center for Ethno-Political Studies. So he's a heavyweight. Ilan Pappe has made a book which no German could ever publish. That book is called The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine. It's a book authored by the new historian Ilan Pappe and published in 2006. The book is about the 1948 Palestinian expulsion and flight, which Pappe argues was the result of ethnic cleansing. And I have read that book. And I can't recommend that book to light-hearted people or to anybody with any problems in health problems. Because that book will leave you with really much concerns what is really going on in this world. If that book is correct, of course. But these are the two books that I have read, among other books, about the subject of Israel. Let's get back to the script. Leonard Cohen, you see that interesting songwriter, meets with Ariel Sharon, Israeli Prime Minister, during the Yom Kippur War. The Yom Kippur War was the fourth of an Arab-Israeli wars which was initiated by Egypt and Syria on October the 6th on the Jewish holy day of Yom Kippur. You know what Yom Kippur is? Yom Kippur is the Day of Atonement and the holiest day of the year in Judaism and Samaritanism. The Day of Atonement.
The holiest day of the year in
Yes.
Judaism.
Yes.
I never knew that.
That's why I have looked it up. Yeah, so they had the war, and you know that there is some power in this world who control both sides. So they started the war at the holy days in Judaism. Interesting.
Oh, yes. So that plays a part in... It's a religious war.
Yes. The songwriter Leonard Cohen. Cohen means, that's not by coincidence, I think, although it's been written here with a C instead of a K. It means priest, indicating that the bearer of this name are usually members of a priestly clan, descendants of Aaron the high priest. Where do we know Aaron the high priest from, huh? The golden calf. And that was Leonard Cohen who said, first we take Manhattan, then we take Berlin. I would never wanted to live in Berlin. I once was there and I found it such a filthy and awful place, and that was 30 years ago. I don't want to go there today. Website claims Ahmed Yassin founds Hamas, so these Palestine terrorist organization they claim. Transgender. 2001, and now it gets a little bit more interesting, 9/11 Twin Towers ritual. Although Israel's influence on US politics is undeniable, Israel is sometimes used by controlled opposition as a distraction from the Jesuits. That is quite correct on this regard. Especially after the 9/11 Twin Towers ritual, which represented the two Masonic pillars of the Temple of Solomon, sure, because then you have the WT7 Solomon building. Larry Silverstein, Jew, friend of Netanyahu, Rupert Murdoch, too much to list.
It kind of, I'm not an encyclopedia.
Papal Order of St. Gregory. Ah, yeah, close.
Yeah.
Papal Order of St. Gregory, so Papal Knight, Rupert Murdoch.
And that's one of the highest titles, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the Wikipedia in front of me. Do you, Michael? No. But anyway, yeah, he's way up there, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
So what I just want to go in is really the Bible and not all this stuff, which is quite interesting. But you see, that won't get us to the real nitty-gritty. Because now, let's go into the Bible. It's far more interesting, and of course, then you find the real truth. So let's start with this. All United States presidents and politicians supported the state of Israel, and most of them visited the Wailing Wall. And if I remember correctly, then the United States was among the first countries who ever then recognized the sovereignty of the nation-state of Israel in 1948. I think it was the United Nations, actually. But where are the United Nations located officially? In New York. And that's in the United States, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
So, what are they doing there in the way and at or in? No, not in, but at the Wailing Wall. It's
That's
interesting.
a very good question, Michael.
It's interesting to realize that the daughter of your future president, Donald Trump, Ivanka, I think it's her name. She converted to Judaism because she married that Jared Kushner or what else. Not that important at the moment, and so therefore they tell that they hold the Sabbath and they have then ties to Judaism and therefore most likely to Israel. So it is no wonder, at least, that your president Donaldius Trumphius here is just handing over his sympathy at the Wailing Wall. But what are they doing there at the Wailing Wall? The Western Wall, known in the West as the Wailing Wall and in Islam as the Burak Wall, is a portion of ancient limestone wall in the old city of Jerusalem that forms part of the larger retaining wall of the hill known to Jews and Christians as the Temple Mount. So the Western Wall, Temple Mount, right? Let's get back. So what are they doing now? They are just showing out in the open their sympathy for the old Jewish temple, right?
Correct.
Okay. And now we look to Luke 21, and because it is stated there and it's stated on another chapter of the Bible, we go once again into Matthew 24 and the verses 1 and 2, please.
Okay. Matthew 24, verses 1 and 2. And Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came unto him for to show him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said unto them, See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall be left here. Excuse me. And Jesus said unto them, See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down.
So what is Jesus referring with the stone? Obviously the temple, I guess.
Correct.
Because the temple has been mentioned twice in verse 1. So then let's just make a few copy-paste, and then we go back to the picture. And then we insert just the verse from the Bible that Brett has written before. Once again, I ask you, what is the Wailing Wall? Or let's put it this way. Whom do you believe? Do you believe the teachings of people, or do you believe the holy word of God in the Bible? What do you believe?
The latter, of course.
Yeah, but you can't have it both ways. You can't serve God and the mammon. So one of the two things that you see and that you read cannot be true.
So this is a symbolic gesture then, what they're doing at the Wailing Wall.
Yes, but the explanation of the Wailing Wall, it's the old ancient western side of the temple.
It's false.
Yeah, obviously.
Obviously false, but we're talking over the course of 2,000 years. They just find some old wall and that's the wall of the temple. Yep.
Either they find some wall or stone, some wall, or they just made it.
Correct. Yeah. How are you going to know?
So that means, and now please, very carefully, because I also can make mistakes. That means that they have already made one side of a temple, right?
Mm-hmm.
You now can imagine where you would need the nation state of Israel for. And now we're going to David Ben-Gurion, the first prime minister of Israel. He was an active Zionist campaigner before the establishment of the Jewish state and played an instrumental role in Israel when the British mandate in Palestine ended. Yeah, please refer to Ilan Pappe, The Ethnic Cleansing in Palestine. He carried Israel through the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. So that is very interesting. So that even Wikipedia has to admit that the foundation of the nation state of Israel is the outcome of a war between Arabs and Israeli people, whoever you would like to count as Israeli people. So this country has not been built up peacefully, but it was just a war. This David Ben-Gurion, he's at least prime minister of Israel, he came up with some interesting quotes. He says, "We accepted the United Nations resolution who won us because United Nations actually is the one-word religion or one-word state ruled by the Vatican, overseen by the Vatican as well as the Sovereign Military Order of Malta. We consider," that's a quote of him, "we consider that United Nations ideal is a Jewish ideal. Comes from 1984, so in the very year when the nation state has been founded. We consider that United Nations ideal is a Jewish ideal." Oh, that means that the United Nations ideal is identical with the Jewish ideal, whatever that Jewish ideal is. But the problem is that it's also false. That would inherit that the nation state of Israel would be a Jewish country, right? Actually, what that means we consider the United Nations ideal is the people of Israel are God's chosen people in the Old Testament, right? And the Israelic people, they did reject Jesus Christ as the Messiah, right? That's why in the book of Acts in chapter... long time. So in the book of Acts, the Acts of the Apostles, of course, in chapter 13, verse 46, Paul and Barnabas said it was necessary that the word of God should first have been spoken to you, meaning the Jews. But, I'm sorry, I take it over. But seeing ye put it from you and judge yourselves unworthy of everlasting life, lo, we turn to the Gentiles. And therefore, Paul is the apostle to the Gentiles and could never been obligated to speak to the Jews or the proselyte Jews in the first instance, but it was then Peter who was the apostle to the circumcised, so to the Jews. Therefore, Peter was not in Rome, but Paul was. But apart from that, the Jews have rejected Jesus Christ as their Messiah, right? So one step back, because everything has to do with everything, still at the middle of the page. That means everybody in the Jewish belief, like the daughter of your president, what else, Donald Trumpius, does not believe in Christ the Messiah, right?
Apparently not.
Apparently not. And now please, Brad, read that highlighted red text here, what the Prime Minister of Israel said in 1962.
Okay. It reads, "In Jerusalem, the United Nations, a truly united nations, will build a shrine of the prophets to serve the federated union of all continents. This will be the seat of the Supreme Court of mankind, to settle all controversies among the federated continents as prophesied by Isaiah." Oh, I'm sorry. Ouch. Ouch. Can anyone say false prophet?
At least you can imagine that when you find that quote on the internet, and I have looked it up, so it seems to be legit. At least that confirms that the interest in Jerusalem is from the United Nations. And then when you know who is just ruling the United Nations, then you got automatically the connection to the Vatican.
And the emergence of the earth, obviously.
And the emergence of the earth, as if we did not know from the Oslo Accords, I think it was in Finland, 1993, that I have to look it up, French reporter said that he has the confirmation that the Vatican owns the majority of property in Jerusalem already.
Correct, yes.
Yeah, there it is, 1993, Oslo Accords. Rome has 60% share on Jerusalem, according to a quote of Shimon Peres, that's also Prime Minister of Israel. Yeah, that's the next bomb. And now it goes on and on and on. So from that article mentioned, from that quote that we just read, or Brett have just read, we read the following. Ben-Gurion foresees gradual democratization of the Soviet Union. That's one heck of a prophet, I guess. How can he know this in 1962, things who would then occur 25 years later, Brett? I guess you can tell that at least he's an insider, right?
Yes.
So the article goes, gradual democratization of the Soviet Union and the abolition of wars by 1987 is predicted by Israel Premier David Ben-Gurion in a statement published in the current issue of Look magazine, which carries a number of interviews on the word outlook 25 years from now, speaking 1962. Mr. Ben-Gurion's statement reads, quote unquote, the image of the word in 1987 as traced in my imagination, the Cold War will be a thing of the past. Imagine 62, Cuba crisis, Brett? Internal pressure of the constantly growing intelligence in Russia for more freedom and the pressure of the masses for raising their living standards may lead to a gradual democratization of the Soviet Union. On the other hand, the increasing influence of the workers and farmers and the rising political importance of men of science, big alarm bell, may transform the United States into a welfare state with a planned economy. Wow. Wasn't the United States meant as the land of the free, Brett?
Yes.
Then you might read Rulers of Evil, chapter 23. However, Roman law considers freedom only as a limited status, a status that a ruler patronizingly granted to his subjects and which he can revoke at any time. Further we go with the statement of David Ben-Gurion. Western and Eastern Europe will become a federation of autonomous states having a socialist and democratic regime. With the exception of the USSR, so the Soviet Union, as a federate Eurasian state, all other continents will become united in a world alliance, at whose disposal will be an international police force. All armies will be abolished and there will be no more wars. If that is not enough to convince you that he's speaking of a one-world government, then we read a little bit further. In Jerusalem, the United Nations will build a shrine of the prophets to serve the federated union of all continents. This will be the seat of the Supreme Court of mankind to settle all controversies among the federated continents, as prophesied by Isaiah. Higher education will be the right of every person in the world. A pill to prevent pregnancy will slow down the explosive natural increase in China and India, and by 1987 the average lifespan of man will reach 100 years. You see, I'm not convinced about the last one, but I'm quite interested to learn where his imagination has been fed. I guess that the Premier Minister of Israel has some insights, right? when he speaks that
Yes.
the Cold War will be a matter of the past in 25 years from 1962 on. So, and then you can assume that all these people are just puppets and they are just obeying orders and they know much, much more than they tell the average people. So there are no prime ministers. A minister means a servant of the church, right?
Yes.
So whom to trust? When people are just coming out of any nation state, let's have it for this Israeli history professor Yuval Harari, who said that man will be hackable animals. And Jesus, the Bible is fake and all the stuff. I can insert it here if I find it.
All right, just a real quick one for you. Jesus is fake news, says this man, Mr. Harai. You have to listen to this. I'll leave all the links below.
I mean, there is nothing that, I don't know, Joseph Goebbels didn't know about all this idea of fake news and post-truth. He famously said that if you repeat a lie often enough, people will think it's the truth, and the bigger the lie, the better. Because people won't even think that, something so big can be a lie. And I think that fake news have been with us for thousands of years. Just think of the Bible. But there is. Let's now try to gain control of the world inside us. This is the really big project of science and technology and industry in the 21st century will be to try and gain control of the world inside us.
This story about Jesus rising from the dead and being the Son of God, this is fake news. This is fake news.
Humans are now hackable animals. You know, the whole idea that humans have, they have this soul or spirit and they have free will and nobody knows what's happening inside me. So whatever I choose, whether in the election or whether in the supermarket, this is my free will, that's over.
So given the power of these technologies, I think there are just two options. Either we destroy ourselves in the process, or we upgrade ourselves into something we can't even imagine. We can't imagine it because even our imagination is the product of organic chemistry. And here we are talking about the emergence of entities which will not be subject to the laws of organic chemistry.
Whom to believe when it comes down to pictures? This is Lampedusa 2013, obviously, and this is Bergamo 2020 using the same picture. You can fool all these people. You are just relabeling anything and people just think that it's the real deal. It's just fear-mongering. Yeah? Most likely these are not pictures of Bergamo where this C19 appeared first in the beginning of 2020. When you then know that in Bergamo, it is in northern Italy, they have just made a vaccination right before. Yeah, they had a big vaccination on a broad scale, but it's not my concern at this moment. Yeah, don't believe your scientists. Yeah, he's making the manu cornuta here, this Jesuit Anthony Fauci. Don't believe them. Yeah, they will just mock you. They will just do the same in Germany here. They ban all unvaxxed customers, even for groceries and other essentials. It's the same they did with the Jews in the Third Reich. Because they said in the Third Reich that the Jewish people would be transmitters of diseases. So in my humble imagination, or my inspiration, I think that the nation state of Israel serves just the purpose to get there the final act in the play of the one-word religion, as we have spoken about in the Science is the New Religion series. So that's an image of the second temple there. Why would they build another temple? Because in John 19:30 we just read in verse 27.
John 19 verses 27 through 30.
Mm-hmm.
When Jesus therefore had received the vinegar, he said, "It is finished." And he bowed his head and gave up the ghost. After this, Jesus, knowing that all things were now accomplished, that the scripture might be fulfilled, saith, I thirst. Now there was set a vessel of vinegar, and they filled the sponge with vinegar and put it upon hyssop, and put it to his mouth. And Jesus therefore had given or received the vinegar. He said, it is finished, and bowed his head and gave up the ghost.
That's it. That's it. Jesus said, it is finished. So why would you need a third temple? You would need a third...
I easily explain that, is that would need a third temple to fulfill the false doctrine.
Yeah,
to complete the what would you call that? To complete the indoctrination of everyone.
Yeah, but
go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah, but that would automatically mean that you don't accept Jesus Christ's sacrifice.
Of course, but the thing is that people are already indoctrinated. So in order to serve the false doctrine, they have to do this.
When he says...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, when he says it is finished, finish means teleo, means to end. So it is the end, the execute, discharge, accomplish, make an end, expire, fill up, finish, 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 finish. It is finished. His task is finished.
Right, but the thing is that the Jesuits have to fulfill their goal, of course, of subjecting the world to their power. So, yeah, we know it's not working according to their plan, but they just go ahead anyway, don't they?
Sure, because they have their task is just to lead the people astray, and that we find in the 2 Thessalonians 2, because that is where the temple has been mentioned. If we read this verse, and then I will show you one picture, and then you will absolutely know what I mean.
2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 2 through 4. Now we beseech you, brethren, by the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ, and by our gathering unto him, that ye be not soon shaken in mind or be troubled, neither by spirit, nor by word, nor by letter, as from us, as that the day of Christ is at hand. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God.
Therefore, you need a temple.
Yes. A physical temple.
And that could not be in Rome. Ask David Ben-Gurion. Ask anybody who's just talking about the third temple. You see,
yeah, it's going to be in Jerusalem. Yep.
Yeah, you see, the temple that they got is not only the St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. They have also Pope Paul VI Audience Hall. It's named for Pope Paul VI, so Pope in the days of Kennedy. It was constructed on land donated by the Knight of Columbus. How interesting is that? Wasn't Kennedy a Knight of Columbus?
Yes.
What's not been stated in the English Wikipedia is stated in the German Wikipedia. Therefore, I have just retranslated some parts out of the German Wikipedia into English. And this is the same article, only in German. DE means Deutschland, yeah, means German. The Vatican Audience Hall. He says, or the designer says, I thought of creating the Christ as rising from the blast of this large olive grove, a place of peace of the last prayers. Christ rises from this crater opened by the nuclear bomb. A heinous explosion, a heinous explosion, a vortex of violence and energy. Aha, so it has something to do with the nuclear bomb. That's interesting. But what's more interesting is, so that is their temple. That is clearly the temple of a serpent. There's no doubt about it, I guess.
Good point, Michael.
Yeah, so the temple of the serpent is in Rome.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the promised land or the holy city in the Bible is, of course, Jerusalem. This is just a depiction of the second temple. Therefore, in their belief, when the Messiah returns, because they don't accept Jesus Christ as the only begotten Son of God, their Messiah, speaking of the Judaish people who are living in Jerusalem and all over the world who do not believe in Jesus Christ, speaking of them, speaking of all people who do not believe in Jesus Christ with his sacrifice, they expect the Messiah to enter Jerusalem through the Western Gate, which has been called can you guess, Brett?
Oh, boy.
I have looked it
I'm
up.
thinking of something completely different, because when you show this picture, if you've ever looked at a Masonic Bible, the very first thing you'll find in that Bible is an image of Solomon's temple. This is an exact duplicate of that. So what does that tell you? Freemasonry is working towards this goal. That's its ultimate purpose.
Yeah, but my point actually is that when the Messiah, where the entire world waits for, so the Maitreya or Messiah or whatever you would like to call him in any religion, when he gets back, they meaning all the people who have Jerusalem as their center of attention, Jewish people, Christian people, who are being misled by thinking they would be Christian, actually they are Catholic, being misled by their authorities, and Muslimic people about them. Remember, there is a mosque at the Temple Mount, huh? The Al-Aqsa Mosque.
I'm sorry, Michael.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
sorry.
In Jerusalem, they have the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which I would expect to be the center of attention when it comes down to a terrorist attack, maybe. In the Islamic belief, they think that the Mahdi is a prominent figure in Islamic eschatology who is believed to appear at the end time to rid the world of evil and injustice. He is said to be a descendant of Muhammad who will appear shortly before Jesus and will lead the Muslim Ummah to rule the entire world. And of course, the Muslim people don't accept Jesus Christ as the begotten Son of God. They only see him as a prophet. Okay, so getting back to this. Then it's quite obvious that everybody is waiting for the Messiah who did not accept Jesus Christ in the first place. Right.
Correct, of course.
So the second temple, later known as Herod's temple, was the reconstructed temple in Jerusalem between 516 BCE, before Christ, and 70 before Christ. Defining the second temple period, it stood as a pivotal symbol of Jewish identity and it was central to the second temple Judaism. It was the chief place of worship, ritual sacrifice. Aha! You see? It is not finished in their belief. Therefore, the Wailing Wall can't be any leftover of the Jewish temple, of the second temple in 70 AD, right? We know so far so good. We know that from Matthew 24 and we know that from Luke, I guess it was 21. So what does John 2 tell us?
John 2:13 through 19. John 2:13 through 19. And the Jews' Passover was at hand, and Jesus went to Jerusalem and found in the temple those that sold oxen and sheep and doves, and the changers of money sitting. And when he had made a scourge of small cords, he drove them all out of the temple, and the sheep and the oxen, and poured out the changers of money, and overthrew the tables, and said unto them that sold doves, Take these things hence. Make not my Father's house an house of merchandise. And his disciples remembered that it was written, The zeal of thine house hath eaten me up. Then answered the Jews, and said unto him, What sign showest thou unto us, seeing that thou doest these things? And Jesus answered and said unto them, Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up.
This is what Jesus has done in that particular second temple, right? He drove them out of the temple and said, Make not my Father's house an house of merchandise. Because you can't serve two masters. And then in the verse 19 he said, Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. And you can imagine what kind of temple then Jesus meant. But he meant not the temple in Jerusalem, most likely, but he meant
himself.
He meant himself, yes. In 3 days I will raise it up. And here he speaks with divine authority. He did not say, Destroy this temple, and in 3 days my Father will raise it up. Right?
No.
So that means the temple of the living God, of the Almighty God, is not in Jerusalem. But the temple in 2 Corinthians 6, verse 16, is not in Jerusalem.
Okay. 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 16. And what agreement hath the temple of God with idols? For ye are the temple of the living God, as God hath said, and I will dwell in them and walk in them, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people.
So the followers of Jesus Christ actually are the temple of the living God. So what did Stephen say which just made all the Jews furious? For they stoned him to death. That's in Acts chapter 7, verses 48 and 49.
Would you like me to read that? Howbeit the Most High dwelleth not in temples made with hands, as saith the prophet. Heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. What house will ye build me, saith the Lord? Or what is the place of my rest?
Yeah. Then you got the confirmation already that God does not dwell in temples made with hands. So there is no necessity to erect a third temple in Jerusalem unless you don't understand the scriptures as we do. And so therefore, I think when it just is related to these 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 with the temple, sitting himself in the temple of God, showing himself he is God, then it must be a false Messiah or a false Maitreya or a false Mahdi. You can choose whatever you like then. Because in 2 Thessalonians 2, if you continue this, he says in verse 7, that's Paul speaking, For the mystery of iniquity doth already work. And I think that everybody knows what's coming next year in 2 Thessalonians 2, because it's then the workings of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders. So I appear to see magic coming down from heaven, or what else they will come up with, just to appear in Jerusalem, so that the people there will get the order to just erect the third temple. And therefore, then they will have then sacrifices and oblations, which Jesus Christ says to decease. Oh no, it was not Jesus Christ who said it actually, but it was Daniel, right?
Right. Correct.
Yeah. So when your rabbi is speaking of the third temple, it's the only cure for coronavirus. You see that you can laugh as long as the cows come home. What does Jesus say about rabbi?
Ah, yes, Matthew 23:8. But be ye not called rabbi, for one is your master, even Christ, and all ye are brethren.
Yeah, that means that's an order to the disciples, and many people understand it as only as an order to the disciples and not to the entire other rabbis. But actually, Jesus Christ is the rabbi. You only need a rabbi if you don't accept Jesus Christ, right? That's the same thing here. They don't accept Jesus Christ. And in Psalms 2, we learn that the kings of the earth gather together against the Lord and his anointed. Yeah, that's everywhere. That's what you really see happening here. Therefore, I can only recommend you to look up this video by O.Fr. And Tom, who comes up with really interesting explanations when it comes down to the Eucharist, for example, he names it the Jesus cookie. Yeah, he comes up with the explanation of Daniel 9:24-27. And Daniel being, I guess it's no exaggeration, Brett, if I say he's the prophet of the Old Testament. Daniel in chapter 9, he speaks about the verses 24-27, which are actually the confirmation that it's about the task of Jesus Christ to take away the sins of the world. And that leads, of course, to another explanation and another discussion with many people about the real 70 weeks of Daniel. What I would like to point out is that Jerusalem has been mentioned here. Jerusalem and the Messiah, the Prince, because they don't accept Jesus Christ. They got their counterfeit Jesus Christ in any way, shape or form. And they will do this in Jerusalem, most likely. Because of Daniel 9, because of 2 Thessalonians 2, because of the book of Revelation, and many, many others. So therefore, I guess that Gustave Le Bon has it correctly when he says, the masses have never thirsted after truth. They turn aside from evidence that is not to their taste, preferring to deify error if error seduce them. Whoever can supply them with illusions is easily their master. Whoever attempts to destroy their illusions is always their victim. The best thing that I can come up with.
Yes, and it's also turning a blind eye to all of history and everything that comes with it, which is absolutely massive. Eradicating all of the documents that existed before what year? Choose a year. I don't know. But it's a really strange world that is now emerging out of a post-COVID-19 situation. And I don't imagine the outcome will be good. But it's all planned, that's for sure. And we've been warned so many times in advance. So, yeah, it's what to say, Michael. That's quite a topic you bring up today, and in fact, that's a topic that has been so incredibly confusing for so long for a lot of people, including myself. But like you said, it makes a lot more sense once you draw these different things into focus. The false teaching of Daniel 9:24-27. We could go on and on. I'd have to make a list of things. but yeah, just in general, it's a quagmire. We're living at the. It's very interesting times, but they're also very. What to say? I'm just really, really strange at the same time. Strange and interesting at the same time, Michael. How would you describe that in one word? I don't even know. But thank you for
Awesome.
putting. Yeah, well, awesome's one word, yes. Yeah, that's true. I think awesome would be the discovery of the truth, and believing the lies would be damnation. And it's startling to see how many are in that damnation. It's not a pretty picture. But that's part of the whole scheme that the enemy has come up with. He wants to deceive us by any means, doesn't he? So, and the Bible instructs us that we should not be deceived by any means. Right? 2 Thessalonians, as we just read.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Michael, quite an interesting topic today, and hope we can proceed in the future, and God willing, we'll see what happens here. I don't know. It's a very ominous future we have at the moment. And yeah, even him who's coming is after the working of Satan with all powers, signs, and lying wonders. Yeah, do your own research, study the scriptures yourself, and be very careful would be my suggestion. And God willing, we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
So when it comes down then to Code Word Babylon, this second edition, Antichrist is a woman alive and well, then I guess we, or at least many people, are being in for a big surprise when we will see most likely a Mary worship taking place somewhere in Israel, in the nation state of Israel. You need a third temple, you need an apparition, you need the confirmation of the major word religion, speaking of Judea. So-called Christianity means Roman Catholicism, so the Pope and the Vatican, which are the puppet masters behind the scene, Islam and some others too. And so therefore, watch yourself what is going to happen in Jerusalem with the third temple. Can only recommend you the video on my channel from O.Fr. That's all I have to do, and all I want to do today. The entire research you can do on your own, but please take a look at that video of O.Fr. That's what I wanted to share with you, Brett. And so then I leave it up to you for closing it down with the final last words.
Very good, Michael. Yeah, that's quite a topic there you bring up last minute, and would take a very, very long time to finish that discussion. And certainly, you're right. This is not something that's very easy to explain to someone that has not looked into it before. It's very, very intense, let's just say it that way. And like you had said before, Michael, not for the faint at heart.
But
For
everything
those
would
that really want to know.
would fit together. You see that? Then you only need an
Yes.
artificial Mary, because an apparition always is artificial, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you need an artificial Mary. You got an apparition there. She's coming most likely from outer space or what else. And then you see that everything can be rewritten. Your entire history, your entire religion, your Bible will be rewritten by artificial intelligence because Mary said so. And all the world wondered after the beast. That's